Belichick's lost a step to me. I'm not going to do this.
This is Anik Squared.
Oh, what's up? Week 9 in the NFL beckons. Anik Squared back in your lives. Jason Anik joined by Bad Anik, also known as Jon Anik, the voice of the UFC, former news sports correspondent with the Metro West Daily News way back in the day. How are you, man? We're headed to New York City next week for UFC. MMA will be all the rage, but it's football today, brother. Been an interesting week. It's been a wild week. Hurricane season down here in South Florida. We got a storm going on outside. Building out a home studio. Thought it would be done today. We're not quite there yet. So I'm driving over here to film Anik Squared together. And in my haste to get out of the garage, I didn't wait for the garage door to clear all the way up to the top. So a little nick on the Audi SQ5 and the rear to a million pieces. So we have a great Brazilian gentleman coming over this afternoon to fix my Audi SQ5 rear view windshield for a cash prize. What a fucking morning, man. The last 18 hours have been an unmitigated disaster. Yeah, and we're getting close to that studio being ready, but not quite ready, and we don't want to broadcast from there until it's fully ready. But I'm excited to get to New York next week, but always equally excited to talk about football. And just so you know, if you haven't joined us in the past on Anik Squared, each week on the program, we pick 5 games against the spread. We go against each other, but our ultimate goal being to nail down our 5 selections for the Westgate Las Vegas Super Contest, where we're trying to win $1 million. Going to be tough, but getting better. So before we make our selections for week 9, let's look back at what was a pretty good week 8 for us. Get to our first segment, Tire and Ice, presented by Toyo Tires. Guys, the road ahead for this football season is uncertain, and there is definitely no map available for players, fans, or coaches. But in order to arrive at the big games, you need to get there safely. So next time you're in the market for tires, no better option route than a quick slant to Toyo Tires. Whether it's a set of open country tires for the mountains of Denver, maybe 4 new Celsius sports for a city like LA, you can ride with confidence and no regrets with their 500-mile or 45-day trial. Open roads await this fall. Hit up toyotires.com to find a dealer near you. Toyo Tires, open roads await. Appreciate Toyo Tires sponsoring Season 2 Anik Squared. Stan Chen, appreciate you. Week 8, and I got to start here. So last week in the NFL, 16 games, no bye weeks, but you can be sure Josh McDaniels will have a bye week this week. Craig Conley, Niner, who was on our program last week, absolutely nailed this. He said McDaniels was going to be fired. Now, I could go on a huge rant. I know you're going to want to get in on this, but to let y'all know what happened. So Craig Conley calls it last week. So Mark Davis decides to part ways with McDaniels, as well as Dave Ziegler, the general manager, both guys coming over from the Patriots before the 2022 season. So they make it 25 games, 9-16 for McDaniels, a shorter tenure than he had with the Denver Broncos. That was 28 games, 11-17. So many bad personnel decisions. But I don't think this guy is like an offensive coaching savant. You know, he had Brady running it for years. I don't think he's a leader of men. I have never thought this guy was a head football coach. But Niners said right away, and when he exited the program last week, I was like, you really think this happens? But it absolutely happened. Josh McDaniels is going to make a lot of money. And I'll let you speak. What's he going to come back and run the offense in New England? Give me a fucking break. The door is not open anymore. And God forbid he comes back in the head coach. I could go on this for days. What do you think of Josh getting canned?
Well, I don't know if you're in celebration mode because you were right about this and so right about this. Of course, an acknowledgement to Craig Niner Conley, who had the timing just completely down pat as far as Josh McDaniels getting fired right after a loss to the Detroit Lions. But I think it's a smart move by the Raiders right now. You got to turn the page and you got to cut your losses. And you have been saying for years that he is not a leader of men. It's, I guess, not so amazing to hear the venom out there for Josh McDaniels on sports radio right now. And it got me sort of thinking in a broader sense. In terms of his legacy, certainly he was Tom Brady's primary play caller for all of those amazing years and championships in New England, right? But will Josh McDaniels be viewed as a success? His bank account is supremely fat, right? Generational wealth has been attained, has children, lovely family, I'm sure. But I don't know, man. I don't think retirement's going to be as enjoyable for Josh McDaniels because his 2 head coaching stints have been woefully underwhelming, right? Like I sort of said to you in my career as a broadcaster, 20, 25 years in at this point in time, if I said something really regrettable on the air at UFC 295 in New York City and got fired immediately, how would history reflect upon my career? And
Right.
I think maybe I would get the benefit of the doubt having established some goodwill with the mixed martial arts fan base, right? But I think for Josh McDaniels, this is a really tough thing because he was put on a pedestal, earned a second head coaching opportunity. But I think in totality, what happened in Las Vegas is really going to hurt his legacy.
But a lot of these former Patriots coaches have been put on pedestals for years. I mean, Patricia earned a lot of money trying to coach the Detroit Lions, and several other guys have too. So, but for me, I'm not excited because I was right. I'm just so adamant about what it takes to be the right type of, I don't want to say alpha, but the leader of these squads. And McDaniels and Ziegler, I don't always love, these guys coming over, they're close friends. They're talking, like, how much juice did McDaniels have in terms of picking some of the players? But I still feel bad for your boy, Max Crosby. Like, get him out of town.
They gave him big money, did that brass. So at least there is that. But it opens up a lot of different questions. And, we'll see what happens. That's enough about that, though. I think for Raiders fans, this is news worth celebrating, that these guys are gone, right? There's no need to wait till next season. And you'll notice the new general manager immediately wants to see what he has in Aiden O'Connell. I think he's acutely aware of what he has and does not have in Jimmy Garoppolo.
Aiden O'Connell looks so much like Derek Carr under the helmet to me. I think he's wearing his number 2 anyway. Wearing number 4.
Couldn't pick him out of a lineup.
Yeah, anyway. But I do feel bad for the Raiders fans to some extent. And you see that, I hate to say, but Texas Rangers last night win the World Series, their first World Series ever. I didn't know that. Texas Rangers never won the World Series. Congratulations, Dallas and all the Texans fans. Real quick, so Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles. Aaron Rodgers reaches out to him and sort of says, hey, this is what I did. This is my guy out in Cali if you want to go out there. Now, Kirk Cousins, obviously, he's not going to be able to come back this year no matter what. So the timetable might not be as urgent. Aaron Rodgers trying to squeeze this in. But Aaron Rodgers also thinks, I believe this is on Pat McAfee, that this is going to be a procedure that's going to be more mainstream moving forward. But seeing multiple guys with the torn Achilles, we know Jamal Hill had it happen to him in the UFC, had to vacate his belt temporarily. Kirk Cousins apparently playing his best ball, but he's 35 years old. Big setback.
It is. And thankfully, again, his bankroll is well secured. I still think he's going to come back and get another big contract. But it's so interesting to look at quarterback play in the NFL right now because I have said this is the most specialized job in the world, I think. I'm not sure that there is a job that has fewer qualified men or women than NFL quarterback, which is to suggest that there are only like 8 to 10 elite ones in the world. And I would think even for like some super hard piloting or some really sophisticated jobs out there, there are probably still 36 people who can do it, right? We have Patrick Mahomes right now, who is the best player to play the quarterback position in NFL history. You also have other guys like Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. I'm leaving out names, but guys who could be legends and Hall of Famers alongside Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
You also have a laughingstock when it comes to a third of the NFL. Right this weekend, Clayton Tune is going to start for the Cardinals and Jaron Hall is going to start for the Minnesota Vikings. Both 5th-round draft picks in 2023, I think 25 picks apart. Quarterback play in the NFL is a real issue, and it makes handicapping Week 9 exponentially more challenging. I do feel bad for Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, but I do think some of it is situationally based. I can joke about not liking Will Levis, right? But you and I are big on the eye test. Eye test immediately. He's certainly one of the 25 guys in the United States of America that can play quarterback in this league, right? You agree? It looks like Justin Herbert right out of the gate a little bit.
Will Levis can fucking spin it. I don't care how long he has to wait in the draft room. And you'll hear a lot of national pundits say this week, right? He has what a lot of these other young quarterbacks don't have. And I guess Mac Jones seems to be a pretty good example. 2 words, arm talent, right? The ability to make big explosive
Niner thought
plays.
Mac has arm talent.
Whether you have Niner was right about Josh McDaniels. He's wrong about Mac Jones having arm talent. I don't care what angle for Mac Jones, fucking 2 p.m., 12 p.m., no arm talent. Will Levis can make big plays. That's why I will pick him up in fantasy football. I don't love him this week on a Thursday nighter against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but arm fucking talent.
Well, a lot of
arm fucking
his
talent.
Teammates on the sidelines getting all fired up. And one more thing just to say before we reflect back on Week 8, but New England Patriots back to earth, huh? Cody Merrow producing the program. I mean, it's like it's so rare that I hate to talk about Tom Brady, but it's so rare that he threw like a bonehead pick. Like Mac Jones is good.
Why are you bringing up the Patriots in the opening segment though this week? Why is that newsworthy unless you're from New England right now in this context?
Well, just because last week, a lot of juice. Fair enough. Moving on. I don't want to talk about him either. All right. Head-to-head last week. John gets the advantage. John goes 4-1, bringing him to 500 overall. 20-20, 16-19 wasn't good, but 20-20 is a little better.
Back to 500.
So I went 3-1-1 overall. Have to say my only loss was on the alternate selection because I had to shift off the Seahawks.
Yeah, but didn't you need an onside kick from the Cardinals to get home?
Better to be lucky than good. I had a lot of luck this week, but
a horseshoe up his rear end in 2023. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm going to give you a lot of credit. Last week, definitely I'll take a little bit of luck.
I'm joking. I'm going to give you a lot of credit when you tell everybody how well you're doing.
Anyway, so 4-1 for John. I was 3-1-1. So overall, 20-20. Like I said, I'm 24.5 and 15.5. So 4.5 game lead over you.
That's a 9-game lead, kind of, right? I mean, you're 9 games over 500 and I'm 500. Yes, 4.5 game lead. But can we just acknowledge, right? Even though I'd love to punch him square in the face right now, I'd actually like to hit him in the equilibrium, like right behind the ear and knock him out. But he's been handicapping the NFL really well. And oftentimes he's making 5 selections early in the week when we don't even have anything resembling an injury report. So I have to acknowledge your 24.5 and 15.5. And here comes the 1 and 4.
Here comes the 1 and 4. But you know, picking games in this league, and when you have to sort of nail down 5 of them, doing it for the super contest every year, but also doing it on Anik Squared, I have some of my own rules that I don't necessarily even share with you where I sit down and I'm like, I'm not going to do certain things where if I'm putting my best foot forward, my best 5, I can live with certain losses. For example, your only loss last week, Chiefs -7 at Broncos. I can live with that, right? Shit the bed, lose the game outright, but you hit your other 4. All right, so real quick, your 5. Chiefs -7 at the Broncos, you lose. You hit Seahawks -3.5. Lions -8 versus the Raiders. Dolphins -9.5 versus the Patriots. Panthers +3 versus the Texans. You hit me head-to-head. I was on the Texans there. I pushed on the Jets -3 at the Giants. We did get that at 2.5 in the contest. I hit Cardinals +8 versus the Ravens, which I hated last week, and it just backdoor covered. That was beautiful. Bengals +3.5 at the 49ers, win outright, and the Eagles -6.5 at the Commanders. So whatever, pretty good week overall, giving you mostly wins, but the super contest was kind to us last week. Going into last week, we were 17-18. No losses on the week, 5-0 in the super contest. Let's fucking go. 22-18 overall. So real happy with that. And I'm going to run through the 5 real quick. So Jets -2.5 at the Giants. Certainly some luck involved there. Fascinating end of the game. If you didn't see it, maybe Brian Daboll runs the ball, they get the 4th down, they take a knee, or you just make the field goal, right? Even if the Jets come down and score a miraculous touchdown, they don't cover the number, but they did cover the 2.5. Seahawks -3.5 versus the Browns. Really got outplayed, I felt like, most of the game, but they were down 3. The way our day was going, that was the afternoon game. We just had a feel they were going to score a touchdown. Sometimes I feel like when this league, when it's going your way, you're going to get lucky at the end of the game. And certain game days, at 1:09 that it ain't going to be your day. Saints pick them at the Colts. That was you. Love that pick. Titans +2.5 versus the Falcons. Win the game at home. You again. And Eagles -6.5 at the Commanders, even getting out to an early deficit. And they were up, a couple touchdowns late, but they still covered. So 5-0 in the super contest. But unfortunately, the leader of the Westgate Super Contest, I'm the captain one. I'm the capped. CAPT1 also goes 5-0.
Oh, this dude is the captain.
So he was at 26.5 points. We were at 17 points. So we jump up to 22 points, but he also goes 5-0 last week. He has a 3-game lead on the entire field through 8 weeks. So the closest guy or girl next to him, 28.5 points. Right. So, and then in the basement, a new leader in the basement. Quit My Job is the name of it. 1-4 last week. 1-4 last week in week 8. 9, 29-2 overall with 10 points. Now, they do have these in-season contests. So for weeks 7 through 9, right, nobody's went 10-0, right? So it's 2 weeks so far, week 7 and 8, 10 games so far. It finishes next week. It's like a little condensed tournament. So we are 7-3. We were 2-3 in week 7, 5-0 in week 8. So there are plenty of guys that are 9-1, right? So even if we go 5-0, right, and we get to that 12-3 in this stretch, certainly there are going to be guys in there that go 5-0, 4-1. So in order for you to win this contest, or for you to win one of these stretches, you really got to go 14 out of 15 in a 3-game stretch to win that You got to just be perfect. And you got to have some luck. You can be sure. Anything else from week 8?
No, just happy to take the 5-0, and we're back in the game. We're 4 games over 500 in the super contest. I don't care about your little mini in-season contest. I'm trying to, get to 56% by the end of the season. And obviously week 8, the 5-0 is certainly useful on that front.
Yeah, and I will say this was the first week where we were physically in each other's presence when we made these super contest picks. So I'm entering them on my phone, and we're sort of talking through a lot of games and really spending the time and eliminating some. Now, granted, some of the we almost had the Chiefs in there, would have dumped. Certainly almost had the Lions in there, which would have hit easier than one of our lucky bets. But a good feel in week 9. But let's get to the meat and potatoes. As I said before, following an NFL team, especially my team this year, can be a roller coaster ride. But no matter how good your own team is, the National Football League regular season Sundays are still where it's at. Still my favorite 18 days of the entire calendar year. Multiple screens going, locked into all things pro football. Bets all over the board. We at Anik Squared are happy to announce that we have partnered with our title sponsor, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official partner of the National Football League, to bring all new customers an exciting way to join in on the action right now. All customers download the DraftKings app using our promo code SQUARED. That is SQUARED. Bet just $5 and boom, $200 in bonus bets hit your account instantly. So don't wait any longer. Get some skin in the game. Download the DraftKings app now. You can stay in on the action. You can use those $200 in bonus bets on DraftKings same game parlays. That's where you combine multiple bets together from the same game for a shot at an even bigger payout. And hey, in some states, sports betting is not available. Don't worry about it. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Sign up using promo code SQUARED. Again, bet just $5 on any wager and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. All right, head-to-head. 5 picks against the spread. Refresher, each week on the program, we pick 5 games against each other. The goal being to get them ready for the super contest. One important rule for our head-to-head picks against each other is we can't be on the same game. So, for example, we don't share our picks ahead of time. So if John is on a game and he selects first, I can't be on that same game. And this guy's what they call
you can't be on that same side.
On that same side, excuse me. But he's what they used to call back in the day a killjoy, right? This guy can't keep a secret to save his life. So he's, we were supposed to record yesterday. All this guy wants to do last night, it's like, you want to talk about some of the picks? It's like, no, I don't want to talk about the picks. So now you don't have to keep the secret anymore. We'll let you continue to have control of the board at 20-20, super fucking average. Okay. What's your first pick of the week?
I beat you head to head last week. That gives me control of the board. And with our first selection, we will take the Washington Commanders plus 3.5 at New England. So you're getting an extra half point here because Washington traded Chase Young and Montez Sweat before the deadline. I still think it's going to close probably at 3 on DraftKings Sportsbook. This play for me is not on the Washington defense anyway, so I don't necessarily mind those defections. This is a play for me on the Commanders offense, which has a lot of playmakers. Sam Howell coming off one of his best games as a pro. Patriots don't really get after the quarterback. New England offense is so defendable. Ramondre Stevenson, though, starting to find that second gear a little bit, running hard, running angry. Kendrick Bourne, though, has been the number one offensive player for that unit all season long. He is now out with a torn ACL. Patriots, and I know you'd agree with this, should not be favored against most teams in their current form. I like the Commanders plus 3.5. Little money line sprinkle as well. Washington Commanders plus 3.5 to kick off my card for week 9.
And I did have them as an alternate selection, but that would have just been a happiness hedge because I'm still rooting for my New England Patriots. But I understand, man, that the Patriots shouldn't be favored, but it's like the Washington Commanders. I believe they've lost 4 straight.
They are an enigmatic bunch, to be sure. 2 of those losses have come against the in-division Philadelphia Eagles. I expect a big effort out of the Washington Commanders. And I do think, and you read some of the stuff about Chase Young as to why they made that type of move. Maybe they didn't love some of the things in terms of his discipline. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the team is just going to fold over. Commanders money line at Gillette Stadium this weekend. You'll see.
Well, and it's down to 3. I think now. I think you got it 3.5 maybe last night.
Our local guy still has it at 3.5. So when you do go into our shared account, you will notice a $230 wager on the Commanders
Well, the
Minus
Patriots,
115 plus 3.5.
want to be mediocre, apparently. So they absolutely are going to win this football game, in my opinion. Even though I had the command, well, whatever. I'm going to move on to my first selection. And I'm actually switching up my first selection here. Because you don't like keeping secrets, I have a little bit of a feel for one of the games that I feel like we're going to be on the same side in this game. So I have to get out in front of it. Now, this line has moved, okay? This line is now 1.5. Somewhere it's 1, but I am taking the Miami Dolphins plus 2.5. As I saw it yesterday. Frankfurt, Germany. What a gift Sunday morning. So both teams, Dolphins, Chiefs, Frankfurt, Germany, both teams 6-2. I think he's scrambling. Chiefs coming off a disappointing loss to the Broncos. Dolphins certainly handled the Patriots at home. I just expect the Dolphins to outscore the Chiefs here. The Chiefs are a legitimate defensive football team. 4th in total defense, allowing 16 points per game, second best in the NFL. Chiefs offense, 4th in yards, but 12th in total points scored. Miami scored 30 points every week. The Chiefs don't yet. I do think Kansas City might be smart and maybe, God forbid, slow Tyreek Hill down at the line a little bit, jam him a little bit, even if he gets off. I can't believe the Patriots let him run free. But this game is huge for the balance of power in the AFC. That 1 seed, more valuable than ever with only 1 bye. And I really do think it's wide open. I expect the Dolphins, the Dolphins haven't beaten any great teams this year. They lost to the Bills and the Eagles, both fairly handedly. I can see it in John's eyes. He's scrambling because he loves the Dolphins here. But I expect the Dolphins to be favored in every game the rest of the way, except week 17 at Baltimore. I think they established themselves as the team to beat in the AFC. I know their defense has a lot to be desired here, but I think Miami wins this game. I will take the 2.5 as I did yesterday in Frankfurt. Fins up.
Yeah, so I did have the Dolphins plus 2.5 in my 5. And just let me get into this a little bit. So I heard a report last Sunday that Patrick Mahomes was added to the injury list late for Kansas City with an illness in Denver. And as you saw, I immediately went into our account and I bet under on Patrick Mahomes' passing yards and under on his rushing yards. And he was under the weather, and both of those bets came in. Now, Mahomes has to travel to Frankfurt, Germany, as do several other players who were under the weather already. If I have any experience that correlates to what these men do, it's with the international travel. Done hundreds of international travel shows, international live events for the UFC. There's nothing easy about it. At least the Dolphins were home last weekend, right? The Chiefs first went home from Denver. I know a lot of people love just the spot for Kansas City, right? Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes coming off a loss. I expect the Chiefs are going to score, but I think the Dolphins are going to score more. Tyreek Hill is going to get after it a little bit. And so I'm on the Dolphins as well, but I do have to pivot off that game.
And I will say, I would be surprised if it makes it into our super contest plays. I feel like we might be a little gun shy, even though we both like the Dolphins.
All right. Second selection for me in the NFC East, we will take the Dallas Cowboys plus 3 at Philadelphia. I'm not so much a trends guy, but sometimes I do go to footballdb.com and look into the series, especially when it's in division. So last 5 meetings between the Cowboys and the Eagles, Dallas has scored 37, 41, 51, 17, and 40, averaging 37.2 points per game. Teams are pretty evenly matched. Dallas already laid an egg in its first marquee game of the year against the 49ers. I don't expect that to happen here. Dak Prescott always beats the Birds, always plays well against them. 8-3 against Philadelphia in his career. Eagles look good. They don't look as good as they did last year, in my humble opinion. So I guess for me, I could see the Eagles win the game. I could see the Cowboys win the game, largely a play on the number. Plus 3 with the Cowboys. I will ride with them in week 9.
Yeah, that was an alternate selection for me. I like those 3 points there. Not going to surprise me to see the Eagles win it. My second selection, though, and I'm happy to be riding with the purple today. The Baltimore Ravens -6 versus the Seahawks. Maybe a little bit of a big number. The Arizona Cardinals fortunate to cover against the Ravens last week, and I was lucky. But the Ravens this week, there are a lot of teams that are banged up, but not the Ravens for once. They need to be healthy. I love the balance in their running game with Gus Edwards, Justice Hill. It's a little bit like the Patriots, where they don't have a lot of great fantasy options. Yeah, Mark Andrews, but they got a lot of talented guys. The receivers are healthy. And the Seahawks are just a little shaky for me, dog. They got outplayed in against Cleveland last week. Really sort of lucky. I like backing the Ravens on Sunday. Like, I feel good about myself on Sunday morning when I get to root for that team. I think they play a complete football team here against a quality opponent. Ravens only allowing 15 points per game. This is the first of 3 home games for the Ravens. I think they have a great chance to win all 3. They have a brutal stretch late in the year, a lot of travel on the road. So for me, the West Coast team in Seattle coming east, playing at 10 a.m., I don't play too much into that. But the Seahawks, for me, It's like they're not figuring it out totally. I think the Ravens sort of played with their food a little bit last week. I don't think they do that this week. I think they can stifle Seattle a little bit and put up enough points of their own. Give me Lamar Jackson and the Ravens to win by a touchdown or more, hosting Pete Carroll, chewing gum.
My guy Geno Smith might be starting to regress a little bit. I do like the Baltimore Ravens this weekend, not in my 5 per se. All right, next selection for me, coming back with them again, Carolina Panthers +3. Taking on the Indianapolis Colts. Frank Reich, former Indianapolis head coach, going against his former team here. I like the spot for Carolina. I like Bryce Young and the Cats to maybe even get their second straight win after what I believe was an 0-6 start. Largely, though, a play here against Gardner Minshew. Throws a lot of incompletions, man. Just doesn't pass the eye test for me. I understand they still put up points last weekend against a good New Orleans defense, but I will gobble up these 3 points every day of the week. Panthers +3 against the Colts. And it's actually the 4th time in 9 weeks here on Anik Squared that I am back in the Carolina Panthers. I see value there. The home underdog Panthers makes my card for week 9.
Well, you won with them last week. Not sure you have on prior programs. Forgive me if you mention this because I will have to make a shuffle. The Panthers were also in my 5. Colts worst defense in the NFL. I don't know if you mentioned that, but Panthers really, they compete unless they're facing the NFL's best. They were blown out at Seahawks, at Lions, at Dolphins, but I think a little juice after last week winning that game. But Gardner Minshew, I just have to talk a little bit about your boy Gardner Minshew. So it's like people say, oh, this is like another audition. Like who's begging for this guy to be your QB1? You know, I think Frank Reich wants to get a win against his former team. I don't know if you said that because I was scrambling, wasn't fucking listening to you.
I led my pick.
Yeah, but that's fine. But could Indy run all over them here? Sure. But I'm with you on the Panthers, and I did some homework, so I wanted to let you know. My third selection, the Browns, the Cleveland Browns -8 versus the Cardinals.
Love it.
So the Cardinals trade Joshua Dobbs, or is that in your 5?
No.
Cardinals trade Joshua Dobbs to Minnesota. Kyler Murray's not back yet. They fought hard last week against the Ravens, but I just think this week they're up against it, man. Myles Garrett and that Cleveland defense pissed about losing against Seattle. They should have won. They're still 4-3. I don't care who's playing quarterback, PJ Walker. It's not going to be Deshaun Watson. But so Arizona, 3rd to last in rushing defense. I think Jerome Ford, Kareem Hunt, I think they go off. And I think the defense, with Clayton Tune, is that his name that you said? I think the defense turns him over. Browns defense #1 against the pass. So if they can, force Clayton Tune to do some things, I just don't see the Cardinals scoring a lot of points here. This kid, was he 5th-round pick out of Houston? Maybe he's good. I just think it's one of the blowouts on the board. Give me Cleveland -8 at home to cover the 8.
I really like it. I think it's a good teaser option as well. It's just hard for me to envision any sort of scenario whereby the Browns lose that game. And gosh, they really should have beaten the Seattle Seahawks. So, and I think they're doing a nice job sort of masking some of the deficiencies of PJ Walker, who just makes some really AAA plays out there. All right, next play for me. And I think this speaks to me just not loving the board because I'm mostly on the Buffalo Bills, but I'm going to play Cincinnati here. The Bengals are -2. I really like the move the Bills made at the deadline, acquiring Rasul Douglas, the cornerback from the Green Bay Packers. That should shore up the back end of their defense. But it is amazing how different, and I know there have been a lot of big-time injuries on the Buffalo defensive side of the ball, but number 58, Matt Milano, when he doesn't play, it just feels like when Kyle Duggar's out for New England, even missing a down, it's like, man, where's 58? Where's 23 for the Pats, right? So I still think that Cincinnati's offense is just going to rule the day. I would go over on every Stephon Diggs proposition. I think receiving yards, catches, I think he scores a touchdown. He feels like the fastest player in the NFL. Every time I watch him play, he is unbelievable. But I like Cincinnati here. Short price at home. I think they're rounding into form, rounding into health. And I just think even Joe Mixon hasn't gotten off. Maybe this is a big-time Mixon game, but I like the Cincinnati Bengals. And the number's coming down a little bit, 2.5 down to 2, and I'll hop on. I think the Bengals keep it going.
Forgive me, but man, we are aligned today, right? Those are 2 of my selections that I'm moving off. You had to move off. I think we might look back that we have 4 of the same selections. I literally am. You have 2 of my alternates. I'm on the Bengals as well, but I'm not going on Anik Squared. I got to make an adjustment, but I got to touch on a couple things on that game. Josh, today we come to you Thursday, November 2nd in the morning. Josh Allen limited in practice yesterday, I believe. The Bills, to me, if you recall, DeMar Hamlin game last year, right? Bengals were up 7-0 and rolling. Then in the postseason last year, they go into Buffalo, roll them. I feel like they own the Bills. I think they're in their head. Like, I love Cincinnati. Joe Burrow getting healthier. I think the Bills are in trouble. They still have road games coming up at Eagles, at Chiefs, at Dolphins. This is a big one for them. They're just too banged up. Run game not consistent enough. I won't be surprised to be wrong. Like I almost went with an opposite play here. So I'm making a consideration there to flip it. But I'm with you, man. I'm on the Bengals. Our boy Big Gun Brian Petrie, shout out Anik and Florian podcast, would appreciate it. So my shuffle here, I got 3 selections. I still don't know who my 4.
Well, and as you make that shuffle, I just want to say Leonard Fournette was signed to the Buffalo Bills practice squad. I wouldn't be surprised to see him added to the active roster. And gosh, I just feel like he runs hard. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. I was surprised he was not on a roster. I think that might be a good addition. So I do like what Buffalo has done over the past week, but I think we're going to end up on Cincinnati in the Super Contest. Keep shuffling those feet.
Right. So I got 4 picks that have been removed to me. So my 4th selection is going to be the Saints minus 7.5 versus the Bears. 7.5 was yesterday. You can see it on my paper. I believe it's 8.5 now. What's the name of this guy playing quarterback for the Bears? You want me to fucking look it up?
Agent?
Yeah, so that's fine, whatever his name is. But that Saints defense, I like back in defense that can give quarterbacks trouble, similar to the Browns against the 5th round pick out of Houston. So for me, I'm going with the Saints minus 7.5. I think that's another blowout on the board. But being truthful, I didn't do a lot of research because this is my 6th or 7th game. So my 4th selection, Saints minus 7.5. Justin Fields might play. That's why I hesitated, but probably not. Anyways,
when you go into our account, you'll notice a Saints-Browns teaser. I really like New Orleans, and I really do like both of those favorites to win by double digits this weekend. I loved what the New Orleans offense was able to do, granted, against Indianapolis, right? But it's like that's when your offense has to, at the very least, be able to show out. And New Orleans has a lot of weapons. Shaheed starting to get going, so I think Saints might end up in our 5.
Rounding in the form too.
I just think it's going to close over 8. All right, 5th and final selection for me is going to be the New York Jets catching 3.5 home to the LA Chargers. This is Monday Night Football, and this is a bet on Robert Saleh. It really is against Brandon Staley. And it's not too much more than that. I mean, certainly we've seen Breece Hall make some explosive plays. I still have to wonder aloud why Zach Wilson has only been able to play like a game and a half at a decent level.
Yeah.
And you can even tell with the coaches, he's not playing on instinct consistently. He's not getting rid of the ball quickly enough, right? But Justin Herbert is essentially playing with one hand. I do think that has impacted him. And that Chargers offense is still without Mike Williams, right? Austin Eckler starting to step up a little bit, but the Jets defense is obviously a totally different defense than the one that the LA Chargers faced a week ago. I just don't like the Chargers traveling here on Monday Night Football. It's a big primetime spot. I think this is a Jets team that I still think can be heard from and still make the playoffs. I think Aaron Rodgers just motivating them. Jets defense hasn't been quite as advertised, but pretty good. And it was 3 when I did my research. It is now 3.5 on DraftKings Sportsbook. Jets plus 3.5 through that key number on Monday Night Football against the Chargers.
I like that half a point. I just have so many reasons not to play this game on both sides. It's like the Chargers. Of course the Chargers. Can you envision any scenario where the Chargers come in here and play a complete football game in all 3 phases and stomp the Jets? No way. Brandon Staley is not the leader of not the leader of men. I just don't see it. I would, but after to have to root for the Jets as we did last week to cover, and they did miraculously. There's no way I can back the Jets again. So what I'm deciding here for my 5th selection is really a little bit of an opposite play, right? I'm going to go against you in one of these games. So I like the Bengals -2. I like the Cowboys +3. So I'm trying to select. I'm going to go against you in one of those games. And I think what I'm going to do here, I'm going to do a little bit of an opposite play. And I'm Brian Petrie. So I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to take the 2 points at Cincinnati. I just feel like I want to go head-to-head against you. And it's not going to surprise me if Cincinnati has some weaknesses, right? There's plenty of analytics out there that really look at this Buffalo team, even banged up, as a better overall football team. Excuse me. When Buffalo puts it together, they absolutely have shown they are the class. After losing week 1, they look like the best team in football for a couple weeks. So I'm going to ride with the Bills. Hard for me to root against Joey Burrow, but I like going against you. So my 5th and final selection, after a lot of adjustments, Bills +2 against the Bengals.
As challenging a week for me to come up with 5 selections, in part because of the quarterback situation around the NFL. You also have bye weeks. You also have a Thursday night situation. And when many of you watch this, the game between the Steelers and the Titans will have already expired, right? But Kenny Pickett is going to be a game time decision. Will Levis going into the belly of the beast. So that game was eliminated for me, as were several others. New York Giants against the Las Vegas Raiders. Giants, I absolutely would have been all over them this weekend if Josh McDaniels was still the head coach of the Raiders, but I pivoted off of that game as soon as that dude was fired. I still kind of like the Giants, but I just wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders play hard for Antonio Pierce.
That Raiders clubhouse chemistry, right? And I'm telling you, I could go on about McDaniels for days. Every single conversation he has with anyone on the sideline looks shitty. When Tua throws up all over himself on the field, he goes over to the sideline and Mike McDaniels is making him laugh. You know what I mean? Josh McDaniels worked when he was like Brady's little fucking brother. Okay? Brady ran that fucking offense. Get the fuck out of here. Collect that $10 million every year. And get on the fucking
Did you see the way Mike McDaniel took to the podium in Germany? Did you happen to see that clip? Guy walks out there and he's like, I know what y'all are thinking. I'm much bigger in person.
and I said to my friend Chad, who lives down here and is a Dolphins fan, we're around a lot of people. I said, my favorite figure in the National Football League, player or coach, it's Mike McDaniel. I cannot root against this team. I have despised the Dolphins for years. Can't help it. Maybe if he takes the gold glasses off, I'll root against him. But dude, every time I see the guy with gold glasses, I'm like, all right, well, he's my favorite person in the whole league.
Oh, he's got the gold glasses matching the gold watch. And I don't know if you know the story on the gold watch. Yeah. I believe it's a Breitling, and I believe it has like the 4 discs or whatever. They're not called dials, excuse me.
Limited edition.
I couldn't find it on the internet. I know a lot of people have tried to figure out exactly what the price point was on that watch, but I believe he got up in front of the team and was like, hey, I just want to let you guys know I made a wayward financial decision. Yeah. I don't normally do this. I bought this really expensive gold watch. And if you guys, shit the bed, I'm probably not going to be able to buy watches like this forever. So, I think Mike McDaniel's going to be just fine. I think he's probably going to end up making like 50 or 60 or $80 million as a head coach. But I agree with you. I like him. I like Miami. And, you're not supposed to buy high, which I think is what we are doing on the Miami Dolphins this weekend in Germany against the Kansas City Chiefs. I just think the Chiefs are not healthy. I don't like the circumstance scheduling wise. But we are sitting here right now in South Florida, and we do believe that the Miami Dolphins right now have a great chance to win the Super Bowl. Like, even if you look at the New England game, Bill Belichick can still coach, but he doesn't have Jalen Waddle, he doesn't have Tyreek Hill, and he doesn't have Tua Tagovailoa. And that says nothing of the injuries that the Dolphins are still dealing with on both sides of the ball. So,
well, this league just remains so fascinating for me from a gambling standpoint, right? So we had a pretty good week last week. We're aligned this week, right? But it's such a ding dong. It's like, do you fade or do you tail, right? It'll be very interesting to see where we end up on the 5. This is as aligned as we've ever been. Be very interesting to see how that Bills-Bengals game shakes out. We appreciate y'all checking us out today on Anik Squared, 9 weeks in. Check out jonanik.com, all sorts of Anik and Florian podcast merch. Got some Anik Squared merch coming down the pike. Average Joe, Art Joe Romero, shout out. Done some really cool things with the purple and gold. The Lakers purple and gold that this guy just can't get enough of. Anyway, for the great Cody Merrow at the helm, and my brother Jon Anik, I'm Jason Anik. We appreciate you joining us on Anik Squared. We will see you next week. Enjoy the games this weekend. Peace.